This is a banana, and this is the FLX2. Do you see just how tiny this thing is? But don't let that fool you into thinking that this is a toy. In fact, it might just be the best beginner controller at this price range, coming in at $179. This is the DDJ FLX2, and it's the smallest and cheapest controller made by Alpha Theta, formerly known as Pioneer DJ. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything about it, from the design to the features and everything in between. And we're going to have a look at some speakers that go really well with this controller. So the biggest pro of this controller in the list of pros and cons is the price. Living in a world where controllers can cost as much as a decently used car, it's nice to see that you can get a controller for $179 and you get pretty much the same experience that you would on the high-end controllers. And of course, the link will be in the description if you're in the market for this controller. Now let's talk about the design of the controller. See, my favorite thing here is that even though it's so tiny, they made sure that they place every knob and every button and pretty much everything where it needs to be, so you don't have to readjust when you upgrade to a bigger controller or even CDJs. So we have two joggles on either side, and although they're tiny, they work as intended, so you can even scratch on them if that's something that you're into. And then below them we have the cue and play buttons, which are self-explanatory. And then on the right of them, or to the right of them, we have 8 performance pads. What I don't like about them is that they're very clicky, but they work as intended, and you have 4 modes here instead of the 8 that we've gotten used to. But I mean, at this price range, what more would you ask for? And then to the right of the performance pads, there's the tempo fader, which is tiny, just like the controller, but it is usable. I've used it many times and I don't have a problem with it. And then here in the middle, we have the 3-band EQ, which is something that you see on the bigger controllers, and pretty much any DJ system that was ever made has the 3-band EQ. And then below that, we have the color effects, and by default, these are like the filter, but there are some extra features that we're gonna get into, which are really cool with these color effects knobs. And then below them, we have the volume faders, which are again very tiny, but as usable as any other controller. And then below that, we have the crossfader, which again is not Macville or anything, but still very much usable. So you can kind of think of this controller as like the little brother to the FLX4, because even though it's so tiny, it looks like it. And this is how it compares to the size of the FLX4. Now, as you can see, this controller is powered by this single USB cable here. It's for both the data and the power. And unlike the DDJ 200, which I also had, this has the audio output for both the speakers and the headphones. So you connect the speakers here and the headphones here, and this is the volume knob for the speakers, and this here is the volume knob for the headphones. They're so tiny, but they're here, unlike the DDJ 200, which was the biggest flaw of that controller. So I'm gonna go ahead right now and connect the speakers so that I can show you some of the features of this controller. So bam, the speakers are connected and we can get started. So if you look here below the master button, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it says Smart CFX, which is Smart Color Effects. And what this allows you to do is basically perform complex effects just using one knob here, which is this color effects knob. And how you activate it, you press shift and then master, and then while pressing shift, by pressing 1 or 2, you can select each one of these effects. So if I let go and play a track and moving this knob, you will hear that or if we select another one, it's or if we select the first one, these are the type of effects that would require you to press multiple buttons and move multiple knobs to do, but here they made it just one knob. Again, this controller is made for beginners, so they just made it easy for you to do. And then here at the bottom, there's yet another button, and it says Smart Fader, and it's kind of the same thing as Smart CFX in the sense that it's making things easier for beginners, but this particular one is not something that I would use. So what it allows you to do is move from, let's say, maybe a low BPM to a high BPM track. So let's say you have one track that's playing at 120 and a track that's playing at 75. What this is going to allow you to do is basically move from this track to this track or vice versa without even adjusting the tempo fader. So what I'm going to do is move this all the way to the right and press Smart Fader. Now the BPMs are matching. 60 is the same as 120 because 60 times 2 is 120. So I'm gonna press play on this track here. And then I'm gonna wait for the right time to press play on this one. Remember, it's only on this side, so you're not gonna hear it. But as soon as I move it, you will be able to hear it. So play here, right? And as soon as I watch the BPM, it's changing automatically. Now, do you see just how easy that was? And I didn't even have to touch the tempo fader. And the reason why I wouldn't use this is because it's kind of a gimmick and it's very easy for a new DJ to rely on it. And the mixes don't sound really that good if you're gonna be switching from like a very high BPM to a very low BPM. It's much nicer if you do it gradually. But then again, that's just me. You can use it if you want to. And another good thing about this tiny controller is that it supports a lot of software. These are just to name a few. And the most important one in this list is Rekordbox because it is used by the much bigger controllers and even CDJs. So if you get used to using this one, once you upgrade, it's not gonna be much of a switch for you because you're already used to the software. Anyway, since this thing has audio output, it means that you can connect speakers directly to it, and what better company to give us speakers than Pioneer DJ themselves. These are the Pioneer DJ DM40Ws, which are just as tiny but just as powerful as the DDJ FLX2. There's one active speaker and one passive one, so you connect this part to the DDJ FLX2 and then this part to the main speaker and then this from the main speaker to the passive one, and then bam, just like that, you have a really dope sound for your sets. So what are the cons of this very tiny controller? Well, as expected, there's quite a few, and you will decide for yourself if these are deal breakers or not. The first one is there's no track selector here. So in order to select a track that you play on either deck, you have to touch your laptop, which is kind of annoying. It's not something that I want to do. You know, I want to focus on the controller and the music is just selected on the controller. So with this one, you have to touch your laptop every single time that you load a new track. The second thing is there's no metering. So metering is those LEDs that show you if the track is too loud or too soft. And the thing is, if your track is redlining on the LEDs, then it doesn't sound as good on the speaker, so you need to turn it down. But that leads us to another con. There's no gain knob here. So usually above the 30-band EQ, you have another knob that's for the gain. It is not here. And someone could argue that if you don't have the gain knob, then it's impossible for you to redline, but some tracks actually redline before you even turn up the knob. So the fact that you can't see it and the fact that you can't even turn it down is a big flaw. And then the last con, which is not really a con for me, is that there is no microphone input. So if you're gonna be using this to go live on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, then you're not gonna be able to talk to your audience unless you use an audio interface and you do some MacGyver type of thing, then you will be able to communicate with them. But as far as this controller is concerned, there's no microphone input. So you just play there and you don't say anything. If none of these cons are a deal breaker for you, then this is the perfect controller for you. But if they are, I would strongly suggest the DDJ FLX4, which is the bigger brother to this one. It's so much better and the price is not really that high. But if you don't have the budget for it, then this is still a good option. Again, the link will be in the description if you're in the market for it. And thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.